What is going on, everyone? MikeO back with another episode of Hobby Talk. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to listen to the show. Joined today by someone that I think you will instantly recognize.
Hello, friends. ThoseBackPages here. I hope you're well.
What's up, Eric? How you doing today?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I appreciate you joining this episode of Hobby Talk. It's a long time coming. Should have had you on much sooner, but you obviously bring a ton of knowledge and experience in the hobby, and I think that's something that everyone's going to enjoy.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Definitely appreciate it. Now, the baseball season is just wrapped up. Time of this recording, shortly after the Los Angeles Dodgers win the 2020 World Series. Want to give a shout out and congratulations to a fine member of the YouTube sports card community, huge Dodgers fan. In fact, sometimes on the field over there in LA when they're playing. Of course, the World Series took place in Arlington. Pepino man, congratulations. I know you've been waiting a while to see your Los Angeles Dodgers hoist that trophy. And your boy, Corey Seager, who you've been screaming
Yep.
out 3 times, NLCS and World Series MVP. I think the 8th player in big league history is what I saw to accomplish that feat. So congrats to Pepino, man.
Yes. Congratulations, Cesar.
So, Eric, we got a few things to discuss today, and we'll talk about the hobby. But starting with the World Series a little bit, at least from a
Sure.
general kind of conversation. Obviously, I would say championships are much more meaningful for athletes in terms of like valuations or how people perceive them, at least in the card market. It seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, but the
No,
NFL with
I
Super
agree with that.
Bowls and NBA. Baseball, not so much. But of course, playing in the World Series does give you more national exposure. More general baseball fans will, see you play, especially a year like this where teams didn't, well, they had a shortened season, of course, but also teams kind of played the same group of teams over and over again. They didn't expand from coast to coast.
Hmm.
Now, of course, Clayton Kershaw, any baseball fan's going to know who he is, future Hall of Famer. He gets his title. His prices have been kind of up and down in the last few years in terms of rookie cards and that Gem Mint 10 that so many covet. Do you think this kind of pushes him a little forward, or do you think the fact that he's a pitcher will just kind of keep him at a more moderate level in the hobby?
I think it's fair to say that him being a pitcher will, maybe rein in it a little bit, but he theoretically, he should see a little bit of a bump. I mean, it's, welcome to 2020. A lot of strange things have happened. After the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes didn't really see much of a bump initially, and then two months or so later he did. So it's with a lot of these guys. I believe, obviously with 2020 hashtag 2020 and everything that's going on, a lot of these prices have these championships almost baked in. If that makes any sense.
I think that plus probably now in this kind of new world of collecting, and I can't see it, but kind of
Air
quote
quotes.
air quotes with the collecting because so many, and there's plenty of kind of old school collectors out there, but there's so many people who are either just flipping or are collecting slash flipping. They're collecting until the price rises. I do
Right.
feel like there's a lot of people that they kind of time it and they're like, oh, let's bombard the market now with these rookie cards. And I think that's what kind of keeps some of the prices at bay a little bit because you would assume, oh, the guy won a championship. They should get, a ton of exposure and those prices should
Right.
rise. But if the supply is there, then they're still selling strong, just the price isn't kind of rising with it.
Right. I think you're going to see a lot of people that might be a little bit shocked how much prices don't increase initially, at least.
Yeah, and I think with
But
Mookie Betts, who wins another title, I mean, he already had his monster bump, a few months ago with
right.
a Instagram or
Yes.
Twitter post or whatever went on there.
Right.
but of course his stuff's still strong. But two guys that win a title who get that exposure, two stars. I think Corey Seager, he's actually a nice story. He was the hot prospect to get back in 2016, and then
16.
and then a
Yeah.
few some injuries, a couple tough years due to that. Kind of almost got
Yeah.
forgotten in the hobby. I think I
Well, he
saw
missed. Yeah, he didn't play in the 17 series at all.
yeah, and I think his 20 I think I saw his rookie card. I remember like back around real spring training, first spring training. I remember for
Right.
whatever reason looking one up, and they were like $15 to $20 for a PSA 10 tops chrome. And I haven't
Yeah.
looked lately, but I know at one point that it's popped up to like the $80 range, which
Oh yeah. It's not 15
it
anymore.
feels cheap. $80 feels cheap for a rookie now sometimes
Right.
when you compare it to some of the
Right.
other guys who have, done a little less. But I mean, Corey Seager showed in this postseason why,
Right. He
people
lived up
thought
to
so
the
highly of
potential.
him.
Yeah. And he was, if you think about it, he was like one of the first of the new regard, like the new regime Dodgers. You had Seager, then you had Bellinger, then you had Lux. They've just had a constant influx of new talent as far as rookies go, and to some extent, that can also work in the negative as far as the hobby goes. It's like, well, why aren't my Lux cards going up? Well, while traditionally Dodger fandom has traditionally rather deep pockets as far as hobby dollars, there's still only so many hobby dollars. So you still have Kershaw, you know, Seager, Bellinger. So I mean, how many guys are supposed to be super mega hot? I mean, you can only. It's really, honestly, I think, and you might disagree with me, but it's really rare to have definitely more than two hobby stars on one team. I don't even think you could say the Yankees, and I'm not talking about the 60s. I mean, current day, to have two is probably asking a lot. Three, probably impossible. For the most part, at least in my opinion, each organization will have one hobby standout. And let's, take the Braves, for example. It's Acuna. It's not Albies. It's not the kid, I can never pronounce his name, Pache. It's Acuna. That's the hobby is spoken in that regard. Could that change? Maybe, but it's unlikely. And unfortunately, that's the way the world works right now. So, how do you feel about that?
I've never really thought of it in that way, but that's a pretty good point, and it makes a ton of sense. From a Phillies perspective, if I'm going to buy
Right,
a current Phillies player, which one am I going to
right,
be most willing to put most of my money? It would be Bryce Harper. He's got another 10, 11 years left on his contract. He
right.
has a chance at the Hall of Fame.
Well,
We'll
I
see
think
how
he's
he
going to get
plays
in.
and if
I
he
I think he's going to
how
get in.
healthy he is. But you have other players who, of course, a guy like Reese Hoskins, and there's other guys
Sure.
that become the new kind of hot sensation. And then when they kind of don't continue at those same rates, that's where people kind of get scared. And of course, there's a ton of autos out there. Let's say a guy like Aaron Nola, very good, but
Right. Also from 2016.
if you're going to put your money one way or the other, you're going to go with the bigger of the stars. So that obviously makes a lot of sense. Not to say there can't be more guys on a team from time to time, but usually I feel like that's a pretty good point that,
Right.
that fandom is going to choose kind of where to put their money and someone's going to become that standout star, at least in the hobby, because I know you've talked about it in
Right.
the past. There's baseball, football, whatever good, and then
Sports
there's
good
hobby good.
versus sports card good. Right.
Yeah.
That's a big thing in my opinion. Now, and Harper, yeah, didn't Harper just, yeah, he just turned 28. So, he's 3 years older than Hoskins. I mean,
And
that's,
he's
I guess
probably
that's,
got, 200 home
yeah,
runs more or something,
right,
something like that,
exactly.
maybe
I mean,
170.
I am personally a big stickler for age. I mean, everyone is so high on Randy Ar-
Rosarina.
Rosarina. Thank you. But he'll be 26 in March. So where's the I'm sorry, February. I had to look it up. So he'll be 26 in February. So where is the super huge upside? Now I get it if you're just buying today to sell tomorrow. Excuse me, that's fine. But and the Rays, I guess not to go off on a tangent, but the Rays are like how do I describe this? They're like a less successful version of the Spurs. They're about winning, the team winning. They're not about individual accolades. They turn most of their pitches into openers instead of starters, stuff like that. So they tend almost like the A's in that regard. They'll tend to put the team ahead of individual accolades. So that's another strike against Randy, personally.
I think
But
it's fun to see a guy take off and have an incredible postseason run. And really, I mean, he had a
sure,
fantastic September as
well, there's
well.
there's
And I
no
like the
denying.
kind of like old school, like the top base rookies get hot and go for $5-10.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
think there's anything wrong with that. It's when you get into the color parallels, the autographs that suddenly start becoming $200 and $300 cards. I feel
right,
like that's where collectors are going to get hurt. If you spend $5
right.
on a base rookie card because you're excited because you're a Tampa fan, I don't think that's a
That's
big deal. But
not a big deal.
from a
But
long
if
term
you're spending
investing angle,
500
seems
on an
likely.
auto, right?
And I think, the age thing, obviously, he could go on and become a Hall of Famer. It's just it's so
Right.
much less likely. I mean, we saw it a few
Right.
years ago. I've brought up this example in the past. A few years ago, we ended up with Edgar Martinez, Mariano Rivera, Roy Halladay, and at age
Sure.
26, 27, even 28, someone would have laughed at you if you said this guy's going to make the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
But that's such a
I
small
mean, very
percentage of
few
players
guys.
where that
Right.
happens. It's just less likely. And,
You think of the Paul Goldschmidts and stuff like that.
yeah, and you don't have to be a Hall of Famer to be collected, but if you are going
Sure.
to
Sure.
think about the financial aspects of the hobby and what you should or shouldn't, or what you can maybe get at a much lower price in the future, that's definitely something you want to kind of consider. We are in, the
Absolutely.
age of the GOAT where everyone's the new goat, which seems to be an ongoing
Yeah.
theme sometimes in the social media time, where if you have a good week, all of a sudden people are paying so much attention to you, not only as a player but in the card market, of course, as well. So
Right.
it's easy to kind of buy into that hype or get excited and kind of toss those outrageous bids in and such, but
Yeah. Get
it's
caught
definitely
up in it.
something you have to think about in the hobby.
I agree.
The 2020 baseball season's come and gone, so I guess all the focus will be going towards football. For a lot of people out there that are multi-sports collectors, of course,
Yeah. 7 weeks. 7 weeks till the NBA.
we're gonna have a weird kind of NBA and NHL because it feels like they just ended, because essentially they did, but they'll be coming up again. So we're gonna have kind of sports year round, I guess. Not that all sports aren't year round at this point anyway, because you have all the off-season activities and free agency, and they've done a good job, all sports really, of kind of capturing at least some level of attention to their fans around the year. And the same can be said for sports cards.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to touch on this real quick
Sure
since
thing.
we just talked about baseball. So sports cards, they release stuff all year. Flagship usually comes out in mid-February or so, I believe.
Yeah. Now, yeah. That's
And
changed from when we were kids.
yeah, it used to be out. Didn't it used to be out around like Christmas time,
Thanksgiving, actually.
even
In the
earlier?
late
Yeah,
80s.
shopping season.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
So now it's kind of starts in February and it just keeps going. Bowman's Best, I think, is typically the last product that comes out, and it's like sometimes Christmas week, so it's super late. Topps Update has been a very sought after product for in recent years.
Oh, for sure.
People loving it. It's a big reason the flagship rookies have made a comeback.
Well,
Tops
because of
update.
US 175.
Yep. Tops Tops update slated to come out. I think it's early November. I think it might be a
Yeah,
week or two
I
away.
did. Yeah, I did hear that the first week in November.
And we did have I posted and asked some people, what are some topics you might like to hear discussed. One was Tops update and what the effect of the crazy 2020 year will be. Obviously, it's a shortened season, Major League Baseball season, 60 games, 2 months long, and it didn't start till August. Typically, the cutoff for Tops update for rookies is like mid
Right.
July,
Is
I
Yeah,
believe.
the season didn't even. Yeah, the season didn't even start until after the the unofficial deadline that is traditional deadline for rookies.
And the trade deadline was September by the time that came along. Not that
Right.
I feel like Topps updates kind of geared away from the traded players. Half the
Sure
guys who get
has. Sure
traded
has.
don't even show up in the right uniforms. But what do you think we're in for with Topps update? Because it seems to
Well,
me
it. Go ahead.
like
Sorry.
a lot of the focus rookie wise will probably be on 2021, but
Oh,
I
for
certainly
sure.
could be wrong. So I'd love your thoughts on update.
Yeah, I mean, it's update is going to be real interesting because of the like I said, US 175, which for those of you that are not aware, that's the Trout rookie. That with that with what that has become, we are where we are now with every other base rookie, flagship rookie. Now, the other interesting thing in regards, and it's partially related to update, is that the factory set came out in September this year. Traditionally, the factory set, which is Series 1 and Series 2, the first 700 cards this year and the last few years, traditionally that set comes out mid to late June. Now, obviously, there was no season going on, as you just mentioned. Now, I felt when they said, and I think it was in April or May, might have been April, that they said, oh, the factory set's coming out in September. And I thought to myself, that's real interesting. I wonder if that is a safety net for, the possibility of not even having a 2020 season. Now, the factory set has been a smashing success with all the Series 1 rookies and then Lubov in Series 2. And then, the added wrinkle of the Walmart, different variations and all that fun stuff. Now, as far as update, I heard some rumors, and again, they're all rumors because I guess essentially everything is a rumor until it's confirmed. But I did hear talk around the interwebs about there possibly being prospects in update. Now, like you said, they've really steered away in a different direction than traded, because you remember it used to be called rookie and traded. And I am a little concerned about this prospect angle, because if they do this prospect angle, it's almost I'm a little afraid it's almost like the toothpaste comes out of the tube, it doesn't go back into the tube. So if they have prospects in 2020 update, it could have prospects in the future. Now, if you know me, and if you know me for any amount of time, that I am not a fan of prospect cards. I feel that it's an interesting conversation where it's open to debate. Like, if you ask me what's Trout's rookie, I say 2011. Somebody might say 2009, because his draft prospect came out in 2009. Now, when you look around at the other sports, you don't have that problem. If you say, Eric, what is LeBron's rookie? 2003. Eric, what's Russell Westbrook, 2008. Russell Wilson, 2012. Sidney Crosby, 2005. Ovechkin, 2005. McDavid, 2015. These are not open to debate. But with baseball, Juan Soto, he's in the 16 draft. He's in 18 major league rookies. So that's a big can of worms. So I'm a little, again, I guess frightful is not really the word, but a little concerned that, oh, well, this Joe Adell prospect was in 2020 update. Why is his 2021 flagship his rookie? Because he was in 2020 update, and that's a regular release. And that whole can of worms can go in a lot of directions. So I am a little overall concerned about update. Just for that, they have to fill out, they can't put out a 150 card update set. They have to do the full, what's it been, 330 or 350 the last few years?
350, I believe, which is an awful
Yeah.
big set when you think about it.
Yeah, well, it's essentially Series 3 because Series 1 is 350, Series 2 is 350.
Yeah, and in the past, they filled it out with a bunch of guys who made major league debuts during the course of the season, a few guys who get traded, and then they do their all-star cards, which there's no all-star game
Right.
this year. So,
Home
I
run
mean,
derby,
yeah, that you're
all that
losing.
stuff.
I mean, there's what, like 80 all-stars now, so you're losing 80 cards there, plus like several home run derby cards. I can't remember how many in the past they've made, but
Right. And
you're
then they
losing a lot of
slap
cards.
the logo on everything.
I mean, I know I've seen stuff about the prospect stuff as well. I am personally, I've been hoping that they will be inserts. I would
Well,
not be
technically,
a
they've
fan.
always been inserts, right?
I would not be a fan of them being part of their base set. If they do
Right.
like a 25 card prospect set, I guess I can live with that. Though honestly, I'd rather not have that. I'd rather just push everyone aside to 2021 that you can't get in. Now, the one card that I could see being sought after in this set a little bit is Randy Arozarena. His Series 1 flagship card is in a Cardinals uniform, so they'll probably make a Tampa Bay base
Yes,
card,
that's
and
true.
then they'll probably also have his rookie debut. I'm not a huge fan of the rookie debut cards, but they are what they are. They're gonna obviously make Lou Bob and Bo, all these guys who did make debuts this year. I mean, some of those guys made their debut the year before, so I guess they won't make them, but it's gonna be an
Well,
interesting
no,
set for
they'll
sure.
have rookie debut cards for sure.
Yeah, they'll have the rookie debut, but even trades, like, not that there were a ton of trades in season, but like, how many of them would they even make if the trades didn't go down till September? I understand it might be coming out a little later, but I don't know. People are jumping on the, Tops update, and obviously prices for virtually every product are up this year, but I'd be kind of careful putting too much money into hobby boxes and
Right. Well,
jumbos and all that.
especially with what the asking is ridiculous. I mean, that's a you know, whole other ball of wax to talk about as far as secondary market pricing and what it is and what it should be.
I
That's
I personally would absolutely love to open some blasters. It's just a question of whether able to run into
yeah,
some. That'll be the
right.
question.
Finding them at $20 is going to be the issue,
I'd
which
assume
is
a checklist
scary to say out loud.
should be released in the next several days. I would hope, but we'll
Well,
see.
theoretically, it's a 1 week out is usually when Tops has put out the checklist.
Yeah, so it should be coming out this week. I would think. I don't see the actual release date. I thought I remember seeing.
Thought it was pushed back. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's obviously all over the place. It's 2020, so
Right, exactly.
everything's gonna be when it's gonna be.
When it
November
is.
6th is the current estimated
Uh,
release date I see. So
so I think that is a week from Friday.
we'll probably
Yeah,
get a checklist coming on potentially
coming
Friday.
this week.
We'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, but Topps update, I know I've had a lot of people kind of asking me, they're like, oh, you looking forward to this, and that? And I said, I don't. Like Alec Boehm had a really nice
Right.
showing with the Phillies this year, and I said, I don't think they're going to make him this year. First of all, if you look at his Topps Now cards, they say
That
call
was
up,
it says call up, then he's not going to have a rookie
which
card.
is the
That's
same thing they did with Rhys Hoskins when he made his
in
debut in
17.
17.
Yeah.
His
Right.
Topps Now cards were call up cards, and
I think that's when it all started with the call up stuff because
yeah,
people were ticked off about it. Like, why does this say call up? And then when when the update came out, he wasn't in it, and then he was in 18 Series One.
correct. So I think that's what we're going to see next year. Now, next year could be a lot of fun because what were there like? I think, and I certainly wouldn't take this to the bank. You'd have to look it up yourself. But I feel like at one point I saw something, and this is before the season ended, that there had been like 100 and close to 150 players who made their major league debut this
I
season.
did, yeah, I think I heard something similar as well.
And that
And
means
Topps will split them up between the two series.
you could see a lot of rookie cards next year, and I'm sure there's going to be other guys who, of course, make debuts next year as well. Now, maybe they'll get
Of
pushed back to
course,
a Topps update or something, but I
they'll
think
spread them out between the two series.
next year
Yeah,
could be a lot of fun to, if you like rookie chasing, we'll see
right.
how they all perform. Of course, it could
As
also
long as
mean a
you,
Topps Chrome autograph checklist could be like 150 deep, and it'd be impossible to
yeah, that
pull
seems
a
to be
good
the norm
autograph,
anyway.
which it already feels that way as is.
Yeah, it's been that way a couple of years now.
But yeah, I mean, 2020 update. Listen, I always look forward to all the flagship style releases, the base tops. I'm someone
Sure,
who's a Phillies collector, and I always look forward to the silly things of making those team sets and adding them to my binder, and it's just an ongoing
makes sense
project
to
that never
me.
ends. And I'm also the kind that
Continuity.
that gets excited for the cards that no one else cares about. Like when Blake Parker was in Series 1, which I agree is a terrible regular base card, and no one in the world, they get a Blake Parker and they probably toss it. But he was the type of guy I was like, they're never going to make a card of Blake Parker. And in fact, he wasn't even with the team when that card came out. He was a free agent. It didn't look like
Oh
they're going to
wow,
re-sign him, but they ended up re-signing him to a minor league contract a couple weeks later. He ended up pitching for the Phils this year. Now Blake Parker is
right.
just a mediocre reliever, and I mean,
Sure,
sadly, he was one of the Phillies' best relievers this year. That's how bad their season was. But it's
it
cool
makes
to
for a
get like
fun
base
rainbow
cards of
though.
those guys because like 20 years from now, you look back and go, "Oh man, Blake Parker! I forgot all about this guy."
Yeah, and he'll be in your team binder.
So
Yeah.
I'm always excited to look at that checklist and be like, "Oh, they made 10 cards. I can't believe they made this guy and that guy." I can't
Well,
believe they
it
made
could
a
be
Neil
worse.
Walker.
You could be a Ranger fan.
Yeah, of course, Series One kind of rough for
Yeah,
Rangers
yeah.
fans. I guess they had a
Didn't
little
have
bigger
one
checklist than
card,
Series.
right? They had one card in
Yep,
Series One.
Nick Solak, and then I think they made a few more. They had definitely made. I don't know if they got an abundance in Series Two. I
I
know
want to
they.
say I want to say 19 guys in
Yeah, they
Series.
definitely got more than most teams, I believe.
Yeah.
And they had
Well,
the
they had to
logo.
make up for it.
And then they had the logo for the new ballpark. That no one got to attend unless
Yes.
you attended the World Series.
Right. Well, I said that to a friend of mine tonight. Now have a championship in that building.
Congratulations to the Rangers organization for having a
The, the,
championship in your brand new ballpark.
the
Just doesn't
Arlington.
happen to be
Yes.
yours.
Well, I guess it could have been worse. It could have been the Astros.
That would have probably been tough for
I told my
Texas
friend
Rangers
if that happened,
fans.
yeah, you burn that building down. It's brand new. You burn it down.
Listen, I look forward to it. I like the wide releases. I'm actually looking at some samples on the website now. They have a couple. They have Anthony Rendon and
Well, didn't they put some of those like sneak previews in one of the top Chrome hangers? I don't remember which one.
it's a Gavin Lux rookie debut
Yeah,
card I see, and then a David
yeah,
Price Dodgers card who didn't pitch for the Dodgers this year, but I guess he
yeah. He
gets.
opted out.
I guess he still gets a ring. I don't really know how that
I don't know
works.
how that works. Yeah,
I guess we'll find out in the future. But yeah, Topps update. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but in terms of pre-ordering, listen, if it comes out and people go nuts over it and the price goes up, it goes up.
right.
I just
Well,
don't.
I mean,
I don't know that I would be super anxious to spend a ton of money on those boxes, and breaking will be tough. I
no.
think singles or buying a set will probably be the best way to go.
I think they're already being pre-sold, or they're already sold out. Let's see.
The estimated
Um,
price I see here on Cardboard Connection is, and I don't know how often they update it, but they show Hobby Boxes best price $121.99.
right, and I think SRP is half that.
Yeah, I was gonna say a
That's
few years ago you were able to buy it when it came out for like 60,
65.
65.
Right. Yeah, I would be really seriously think I don't think SRP is over 75. So that's you know, another thing to consider when, you know, pre-sales and all that stuff started. It was based on update being like update of the last 10 years, not, what it is now. Yeah, one of the big three, as I like to call them, has them at 128, 127.95 for hobby, and jumbo at 245. I mean, I guess maybe it's just me, but that is beyond me a little bit. That we're looking at almost double SRP for something that no one really knows what it's going to consist of. And at the end of the day, it is flagship. It's not going to be anywhere near shore printed
Yeah, and
in the grand
conventional
scheme of
thinking would
things.
make you think that there's unlikely to be any crazy great rookies. I mean, you never know. There could be a
Well,
rookie
they
card
might have,
of
yeah. See what they do with the SSPs and stuff like
there
that.
could be, but like just even a standard rookie, there could be someone who
Mm,
was playing in spring training that made a few at bats that
well,
gets a card
right.
like,
But
but that's
not
so
no one like
that
Joe
doesn't
Odell
happen that often, you
made
know.
a splash when he came up, right?
Yeah,
And he's
it's
already shown what his 2021 looks like.
yeah, it
So
just seems unlikely to have any kind of immediate guy. You know, again, you talk about short prints, that's always possible.
right.
Parallels, of course, of rookies or rookie debuts, I'm sure will be somewhat
Well,
sought
they'll definitely
after,
be.
but
Well, they already did it with right.
it's just it's not the
They
type of
did a lot
product
of
you open to get like the
no,
autograph or the hit. Like your relics aren't
no, no,
of
no.
much value. The autographs are very difficult. They're generally
Right.
sticker autographs of, not that you can't get great guys, but they're really tough.
Like
So
yeah, like the basic like it's almost like in the chromium arena. And when I say chromium, I mean Topps Chrome, I mean Prism, stuff like that. You're not opening that for the autographs, really. I mean, it's nice, but you're really opening that for the color.
another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was obviously you're aware, I'm aware, I'm sure everyone out there listening is aware that the hobby has been growing in interest and attention for years, but it has exponentially gone bonkers in 2020, and
Hmm.
we've somewhat gotten used to it, I guess, to a degree in some aspects, even though we still look at prices for Topps Update and just like you're almost somewhat shocked at like why is this product that price?
Right.
But the hobby's gone crazy. Obviously, a ton of emphasis on value, ton of emphasis on flipping and all that type of stuff. But even for those getting involved in collecting, even if they're buying to collect and they don't have any real intention to sell, there's so much content out there on social media, and there's obviously so many cards to choose from that a lot of people are kind of getting in. And of course, it's natural to get in and get excited, and you're like
Sure.
fervently trying to make up for lost time or whatever it might be. But really, when it comes down to it, collecting is something that takes a long time. It's not something that you can really put together the collection you want overnight. It's going to take a while, and I think long-term projects. That's something that was brought up by a listener. They wanted to kind of hear about some long-term projects that maybe we're working on, and kind of the thoughts
Okay.
on the long-term projects, just in a general way. Why is that a good way to collect, and maybe it kind of allows you to kind of check yourself and not kind of go crazy and blow the budget right away or kind of get overboard where you end up getting yourself in a bad place. So it becomes a negative experience rather than a positive experience.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to, like you mentioned just a second ago, you don't want to overextend yourself. There's the old cliches: the grass is always green on the other side. There's always a bigger boat. All of that stuff, and it's true. And visiting my YouTube channel or your YouTube channel or any other of the, YouTube channels that have been around a while and, quote unquote established type of YouTube channels. And you're, wow, look at all that, look at all this car. And I'll just speak for myself about myself. Oh, Eric, you have all these, you have this, you have that, you have that. It's awesome. I'm so jealous. And I have to remind people, look, I've been collecting for 40 years and, off and on different things. And with a primary focus the last 15 years of graded rookie cards. Now, you and I could have an entire other episode just on, the whole grading thing. I understand both sides of it. My opinion, I appreciate it. And again, like that's just, we could go off on that tangent for an hour or so. But, when I'm asked about projects and, when I'm meeting somebody new, one of the, a fellow collector, and, well, what do you collect? That's, the vague, broad, open-ended question. And it's graded rookie cards. I don't, I don't, I like to call myself, the jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, I tell everybody focus, 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 and I have the hardest time with that myself. But I do like the umbrella of rookie cards, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer. It's all good to me. I mean, it's always learning. Like I always like to say, always learning and sharing my knowledge and stuff like that. So I'm always trying to think of trying to, zag when everyone's zigging type of thing, like trying to stay ahead of the curve and try to figure out, all right, this, whatever it is really either not necessarily underpriced, but underappreciated in the hobby at this time. And will that change in the future? I believe so. Whatever it may be, I believe so, which is why I choose to collect whatever it may be. Does that always work? No. But fortunately, from my collecting habits, it's worked more often than not. I see something and I see, oh well, and I'll even give an example right now if you're still listening. Thank you very much. And I've only told a small amount of people that, and that's going to change in 5 seconds when I talk about it. I recently, a couple weeks back, I watched a of all things, a cigar aficionado interview with Michael Jordan. It's highly recommended. You can search it on your own on YouTube. It was an hour-long interview. Very fascinating. The one thing that struck out with me is that Michael spoke about when he was little, huge racing fan, huge stock car racing fan. His father and his siblings and his father would pile into the car and they travel all over the South going to see NASCAR. He said his favorite, his idol was Richard Petty. And I said, oh, wow, that's interesting. Never thought of that, for years and years and years. And I'm sure you and your circle of friends as well, Mike. NASCAR, 4 lefts. And then 4 more lefts, dismissed. Not, air quotes again, not a real sport. Well, you know what? It might not be my cup of tea. It might not be your cup of tea. But the sport's pretty damn popular. Now, Richard Petty, his rookie card, it's going to sound weird to say this, but it's, the whole racing collecting thing really didn't even take off until the late 80s. So in 1988, a set called Max came out, MAXX. And I've been picking up a couple of Richard Petty rookies. They're $5-10 each. Not very expensive. But I just find that fascinating that's, like you mentioned earlier, we talked about GOATs, greatest of all time. Richard Petty is, in my opinion, a GOAT of racing. I mean, it's not, again, my knowledge of racing is is elementary at best. But I know who Richard Petty is. I mean, it's like if I say to you, Mike, you don't like soccer, but you know who Pele is, right? I mean, it's
Of
not
course.
it's not a question like, oh no, Pele, I never heard of that type of deal. So I think that Richard Petty stuff is underappreciated, and especially when you're looking at 2020 and the grand scheme of everything that's going on with 2020, where every other, you know, baseball, basketball, football, not so much hockey, but soccer, exponentially going up in price. You know, how much am I going? If I'm spending $5 or $10 on a Richard Petty rookie, how much am I really going to lose? That type of thing.
It's
So,
not too far to fall from 5 or 10
right,
bucks. So
exactly. That's the way I look at it, and and again, it's something else to keep myself stimulated in the hobby without breaking the bank, which is really tough to do.
it's kind of interesting. The whole, racing stuff doesn't seem to get a lot of attention, and maybe that's just because obviously racing is incredibly popular. But I guess the circles of people who have been collecting who are into the baseball, football, basketball, they just don't pay it much attention. I mean,
Correct.
I know in the past when there'd be stuff on the shelf, you'd find like Prism NASCAR, is it? Prism
Sure.
Racing,
Yes.
whichever it was.
Yep.
And I
Racing.
think
Yep.
last I looked, like the boxes were still pretty cheap, like below like ones from a couple years ago. And of course, I have no idea what the potential contents are, but
Right.
last I looked, they were
Well,
still below retail price. Now that might have changed
no,
with the
I
Prism.
don't think they are below retail, but they're probably as close to SRP as anything Prism makes for sure. The way everything Prism has taken off.
So, I mean, that's kind of an interesting observation. I remember back when because I was a big start and lineup collector back in the day. I remember I think they did NASCAR for like 2 years,
They
and it
did. They
it
did. Yes,
was
I remember seeing that.
it wasn't like crazy popular, but the people who loved them loved them. But I think that
Right.
was probably a regional thing. If you went a little further south, I'm sure the WalMarts
Sure.
and such would be cleaned out. Toys R Us back in the day, whereas
Hmm.
in the Philadelphia region, they'd sit there a little longer
Right.
than
Same
maybe
in New
some of the
York.
other
Yeah.
sports.
Actually, I don't even think I remember seeing them here in New York. Like the NASCAR stuff at Toys R Us. They probably didn't even stock them here.
But
Well,
long-term
so
projects, I know for myself, I have the ever going. It's complete, you know, once a year until the next product comes out. But like my Phillies tops
right,
all-time team set, that's the type of thing that took me, years to put together to get to the point
right.
where
Well,
obviously you can
to
update it
go,
year to year. Because
yeah. Well, that goes all the. You can go. How far back can you go to T206? Can't you? I mean, you can technically. Can't you go back to when did the well? If you go back to
well, for the top set, I just went back to 52. I did like every
well, yeah,
base team
but I
set.
mean,
But in terms of the Phillies collection, that's obviously long
right.
term and ever going
The
because
A's,
I have
the Philadelphia A's. I mean, that goes back.
1888.
Yeah,
1888,
exactly.
I think, is my oldest, Phillies card. So there's
Philly,
obviously
Philadelphia
things
cards, right?
mixed in there, and it's just
Sure.
like it's not possible to put that together overnight because
No,
some of them are
no.
so rare that you only see them once every other year.
Heck, even the 52 high numbers and stuff like that, and then the tricky high numbers, like the 66 high numbers, are tricky, expensive that people wouldn't like. At least for me, like I did that for the Mets, and I actually slacked off on it a while ago. But I did from 62 when they first started. I think I have until like 2011 or 2012, and then I just lost interest like I usually do. But I can always. It's not. It's not a challenge to get the last 6 or 7 years of Mets team sets, but I do remember the one thing that stuck out in my mind is like 66 tops Choo Coleman. Very expensive card. Like a $40 card.
Yeah, it's not
Raw.
exactly like it's going to be a gem mint or anything either.
No, it's 3 or 4 shape. And it was still like $40 raw because it's one of those tricky guy numbers, which is, a whole another topic to discuss as far as even just within the flagship stuff.
But even if you want to collect, player collect or whatever, and you're just getting involved, you have to know that it's going to be a longer term project.
Oh,
It's just
without a doubt.
unless you're Jeff Bezos and you just keep buying anything you want on the split second.
Right.
There's cost things that are prohibitive. There's time. There's doing the searches to find these items. So I think that's a
Right.
good way to collect, to always just kind of phase in and out. I'm not the type of person that I do check eBay often. I constantly have some items on my watch list. Lately,
Sure.
I've been in the mode of every now and then I add some items and then I just look at it. There's times where I spending way too much time searching around and I'll go in and
Mm-hmm.
out. But I mean, if you're going to collect stuff, you got to realize you're going to, and if you're a new collector, you're going to go through different phases. You're going to be super
Oh,
excited.
yes.
You're going to pull back a little bit. You're going to just get distracted by things in the real world at times.
Mm-hmm.
And your desires to collect are going to change a little bit. Sometimes you might get into it, busting a ton of wax, and then you might
Mm-hmm.
make the decision, you know what, I'm just going to buy singles. Then you might get into
Mm-hmm.
grading. You may not. You may try grading and then decide it's not for you. There's just so
I
many
mean,
angles and so many ways to
so many.
collect. So
And
you're just going to
and
evolve, and you shouldn't
you know,
think you're going to be locked into any
no,
certain
and
specific way to collect.
obviously speaking for myself, and I think even you can chime in and agree with this as longtime collectors. When you think of a new idea, you go full bore ahead. It's exciting. It's like even take the Richard Petty for example. That was it's been a few weeks now, but initially it was real exciting. Oh, let me search for this. Let me search for this. Let me check eBay. Let me da 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 da. So you get that rush of something new to search out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, the stimulation of something
Yeah.
different, is definitely
Mm-hmm.
an excitement. And I think that's what some people go through when they see, the new youngest, stud, like, oh, I'm going to get in on this guy early before he takes off. Meanwhile,
Right.
that's already taken off to a crazy
It's too
degree.
late.
And I actually think that's one of the reasons, I do think, vintage has obviously climbed quite a bit as is, but I feel like vintage, specifically even the lower graded vintage, since everything mid grade and higher sometimes is just out of control now. But people right now getting into the hobby in the last year or so, or they're so familiar with all these rookies and even the prospects, and people know the stars and they'll collect the stars. But I feel like eventually, if you're going to stay in collecting and you kind of see the rise and fall of a lot of rookies, let's say there's 50 rookies, 20 of them are just about out of the sport in a few years. And then you got,
Oh yeah.
20 that are pretty good players, occasional all stars. Then you got 10 that are stars, but only like three or four of them become kind of superstars, where only a couple are headed in that potential Hall of Fame direction. It can obviously change with every rookie class, but I feel like if people stay in the hobby, they're going to mature as collectors a little bit and be like, you know what, let me look at some of these sure things a little bit, and then kind of move and learn a little more about vintage and get excited about whether it's Hall of
Right.
Famers from their team or just super popular, whatever it is.
Well, I
That's
think that's interesting that you say that because it made me think of something. Like like I fully admit I spend way too much time on the blowout message board, but I see people coming back all the time, either coming back or joining, the hobby in general, coming back after a long hiatus or starting afresh and new. And they're like, well, and a very, very popular debate, especially with what Tatis did this season. Should I buy Acuna, Soto, or Tatis? That's the general. Which one should I pick? And I, sometimes a little bit snarky. It's like, yeah, collect them all. Because in my mind, you know, especially Acuna, Soto, and Glaber, there's no problem collecting those guys in 18. They're all cheap, especially flagship stuff. They couldn't, like people, this might be a sticker shock for some of the listeners, but 2018 update in 2018, for Black Friday, hobby cases were $500. That was the Black Friday price. Boxes, individual boxes. I bought one. It was $55. and it came with the silverback. That was the going price. It wasn't like, I mean, it was a little cheap. I mean, they might have been selling for 85 at the time, but so it's easy to fall back. Like, and that ties in with what you said about collecting for a long time. I like to say, like, got new guys coming in all the time. Hey, I want to buy rookies. All right, well, pick a couple brands you like. Me personally, I like Flagship, I like Heritage, and I like Topps Chrome. So for any hot rookie, if I have their Flagship, their Heritage, and their Topps Chrome in my collection, I feel satisfied. Now, if I go out and I get some other, color or other brands, that's great too. But the meat and potatoes for me personally is in those three brands. So you have those three brands, and then it's the whole collecting thing. All right, so I've got that now. And again, this might sound weird. Like, for 19, it was Tatis, Vlad Jr., Alonso, and who's the fourth? Oh, Eloy. You agree that those are the four
Yeah, they were the
main
four hot
guys?
guys in the regular set. Yeah, because update
Yeah,
wasn't as
right.
strong.
No. So again, even in 19, I was able to buy. I have in Topps Chrome Refractor those four guys. I think I paid $40 for all four guys, just to show you how much the market has changed. In 14 months.
I think even, and we talked about this earlier, championship sticker prices. Juan Soto, when the Nationals won the World Series last year, and he was kind of right there as potential MVP, so he did perform well. I think really the going price for his Chrome rookie in a Gem 10 was like $80. There might have been a
Right.
handful that went for triple digits, but most were at like $75 to $80. And I know
Right.
that's obviously ballooned way up.
Sure.
So it's 2020 has made a hell of a difference.
It really has. I mean, it's a little, and I always say this, I don't envy anyone who's jumping in now, because with the price changes and everything, it's just, and that works twofold. I mean, that works, I'm a guy who, self-admittedly collects too many different sports. And, for example, I know you're not a collector, but you obviously follow the other sports, correct?
I mean, very generally, I'm not a
Right,
tremendous fan. So obviously, I
right.
kind of know what's
But I
going
mean,
on, but I don't.
right. You know who Patrick Mahomes is. I mean,
Well,
it's
yeah,
not
I do. I used to collect more football. I do collect
right.
some football. I just at some point
You have to choose.
before the hobby went crazy, I just went from more 50-50 and kind of geared up to more like 95% baseball. I've
Right.
actually bought some more football this year just because I was lucky enough to find a few retail
Yeah,
products. So
no,
I've been
that's
opening a few.
right. Hmm.
But I honestly, when I buy football singles, I'm buying like cheap stuff that most people don't care about.
Right.
Like, so
Well, in that regard, Donruss Optic, Panini Donruss Optic, up until last year, no one really cared about Optic.
I always liked
So
Optic, and I actually,
me too.
that's one of
The
the few years
hollows.
that I actually bought multiple hobby boxes of the same product. The
Hmm.
Mahomes rookie year, I think I ordered
17. Yeah.
3 boxes,
Nice.
got zero Patrick Mahomes. I opened them
Oh,
with my dad and my brother. I forget when
oh,
we got them. It was probably around like, God, it was late in the year. It might have been around like postseason, playoff
right.
time. I mean, theoretically,
Yeah.
should have probably kept a couple of them sealed.
Right. Well,
But
a wax always wins.
but yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun to break them, of course. But
But
even
even
that
a
optic, I
perfect.
remember as of like a year and a half ago. I swear I saw a couple optics like on discount, like blaster
Yeah. No.
things,
No doubt.
and now they're God
Yeah.
knows how much.
I think blasters are like 250 now, or some stupid number like that, which is just mind-boggling. They were, $15 14 months ago. Now they're 250.
I know you've brought up, in the past on your channel, people talking about the bubble, the crash, all that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
like obviously we know there's ups and downs, and it's like that in any type of collectible market. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
ups, there's going to be downs. My thing right now is like how long can the hobby sustain itself from like a wax, like how many people are going to actually like open stuff? Like is 2021 going to be any different for like I'm
I,
not even talking about like the hard to find stuff, like these
right.
based, like I saw Gold Label for $100 a box. Gold Label, I like the framed autographs. I think they're pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Gold Gold Label, the new version of Gold Label has never. I've usually opened like a box or two per year, just kind of for the hell of it.
Sure.
But it's never appealed to me the way, because I know what it was like in what 98, 99,
Yep.
98.
Yep.
Beautiful set. The new ones are just so. The look is okay, but the
But they're
stock is
more paper.
so cheap
Right.
compared to, yeah. They're just
Right.
not the old Gold Label at all.
Not even close.
They were always like $45 to $65. Like they'd probably come out for 55, 65, and sometimes you'd get them
And
for
then drop a
45.
little.
And
Right.
even when you paid 45, $50,
Struggle.
usually you got a $5 or $10 autograph and you got some cool cards. So, I mean, it wasn't a tremendous loss if you looked at it from that way. I mean, you've
Right.
add in the
The
fun factor.
entertainment value.
I can't imagine opening that product for 80, 90, $100. Like,
Well,
it's just, that's, I think, the craziest part. Not even like the
if
rise in prices
right.
of the cards that you can't get out of packs now, but like,
If you think that's crazy, next week, the first week in November, Panini Prism Football is coming out. Hobby boxes pre-selling at $1,000 a piece. SRP is $150. Might be $175 now, but they are pre-selling at $1,000. How, you know,
who can
and
open
again,
that?
right, like you just mentioned with Gold Label, Panini is making these $1,000 boxes that people are pre-selling. This gets a retail price of one. Just make the numbers easy, 150. So Panini makes that, and they give you probably between $80 and $100 worth of value because it's being produced on the premise that it's $150. So now that it's 8 times that, 7 times that, it doesn't mean Panini is going to put 7 times more in the product. So it's wild to me that and you had this whole segment, for lack of a better term, with 2021 with wax. It's crazy to say this, but I don't think it's going to change any in 2021 because what's happening is, and at least in my opinion, is these Panini Prism is a top chrome product essentially. It's not a high end product. So these boxes are getting broken. Make no mistake, they are getting broken probably by breakers more than anybody else. But they are being ripped. But the prices are I don't. And another discussion was basketball, Prism basketball. 2021 product Prism basketball I think is due out in March now. It's way late because everything changed up. I think Panini they had their conference last week and they put out the projected basketball release schedule for the next season. But the big debate on, at least on Blowout, has been, LaMelo, LaMelo Ball is no Zion Williamson, no John Morant. So obviously wax is going to be cheaper. No, it's not. It's like there are legitimately people that believe that 2021 Prism basketball is going to be $300 a hobby box. And, anyone who's just paying attention to us right now, I just said minutes ago that NFL Prism is pre-selling at $1,000. There is less than zero chance that an NBA Prism box will be $300. Less than zero. Regardless of who's even in it, Prism is Prism now. It's just crazy times to stop and think about it. I mean, it's just people are like, well, 2021 is going to be easier on the retail aspect. No, it's not. I just can't. Not on these chromium type products. Maybe on like 2021 Topps Big League. Maybe we'll see that on the show. Which is, when you stop and think about that now, 2020 Big League I haven't seen in the store in months. Which is just weird to come at Topps Fire. I haven't seen maybe once this year on the
I think
retail
that's
shelf.
probably the craziest part about the retail scene. It's not that the premium products are selling out instantly, it's that the lower end products that typically would be, baseball wise, they'd be there into January, and
Right,
like they're just gone instantly. It's just like,
right,
I mean, hey, I like Allen and Ginter, but I'm no fool. Like, I know that Allen and Ginter retail products typically are
right.
very easy to find for a long time, and
Correct.
eventually available below retail. Topps Fire. Some people love it. It's not my favorite thing. I'll break a
Sure.
box on camera once a year, but it's Topps Fire. Like Big League, I actually think Topps does a good job with Big League, but it's a introductory product. It's a low end
Right.
product where hobby boxes are like $30. So it's just crazy that stuff is
You can't
vanishing
find them.
instantly.
Right.
And
Right.
I almost have like a panic attack thinking about Prism football. I'm like, I don't even want to attempt to look for that retail.
Right.
I would
You
like
know,
to get some, but I mean,
absolutely. I
obviously
mean,
everywhere is a different thing. Anyone who heard the last podcast kind of, heard Ed and I talk about our area is very, very
right.
bad. Like
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
uncomfortable. It's not,
I can,
it's not
I
fun.
can, right. I can speak to where I live. I'm on Long Island in New York, and I've gone to my local Target, as I like to call it. I've gone there, not quite daily, but pretty much daily since 2007. And last month they put up the sign, one item per customer per day. So that's one SKU. So that means if you see a gravity feed box, you're allowed to buy one pack. It's just, these are the times that we are in, and that applies to Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, everything is one SKU, and they're funny. It's funny because they're taking, like, and I'll never forget, they had archives fat packs in the video game clamshells. The,
It's
the
just comical.
$5.99 pack in the video clamshells, where they have to they have to do the electronic thing to open it for you, and because everyone's like, oh, screw that, Eric, just go to self checkout. No, they're at self checkout. They're watching you like a hawk, and it's
As much
like,
as that's a pain in the ass for you, I'm
right.
sure. I honestly think that's a brilliant idea, and I kind of wish places around here would do it because
Yeah, a
even when
couple of
there's
my friends have
limits,
said the same thing.
well,
Yeah,
there's limits, so the stores are not consistent around me. The
right,
one they literally put up a limit sign on the one morning because they knew people were basically lined up to get in there,
right,
and most people ignored it and just start checking out. And even though they took, I think their limit was two of whatever kind, so you could get two
right,
boxes and two packs.
right,
And I, you know, guys actually, whoever got in there first kind of basically took charge and actually split things up fairly evenly, which
hmm,
was more than you could have said for what other guys would do.
yeah,
So I don't remember what I had. I didn't have that much because I got a huge shipment of stuff in, and like the woman at self checkout is just like, hey, it's limit whatever, and she's like, I have to take. I was like, whatever. I gave it up. I was like, I'm not gonna argue
I
with you over
argue
it. Of
about it.
course, I'm happy as hell to get what I got. I think I got two of the mega boxes, so
Right.
that's a win. But other guys cursing and screaming,
Oh
and they're
yeah,
just scanning it out because there's nothing they can do really to stop you. Like they just, it's like if it's in the clamshell, they can refuse it, but they're not going to
right,
physically, assault you to stop you
Oh
from
yeah, I
scanning the
mean,
stuff out. Like,
I've spoken to the rep that she stocks the shelves, and she's like she showed me she carries pepper spray because people follow her from store to store, and oh, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? I think we should not, as a community, it's embarrassing.
that's one of my things why, like, I just kind of don't even want to go because I don't want to be associated. Because
Right.
basically, it's if you're not there, like, there's different stores, but there's a couple stores that they're stocked before they open. And if
Hmm.
you're not there, like, forget it. You have no chance to get anything. So, I mean, I've done it a few
Right.
times, but it's just,
It's just,
it's not a,
eventually this
it's
is
a
going to
frustrating,
pass.
it's a frustrating
It's
situation. And
right.
that's the thing where it's like, if you're feeling disgusted as a longtime collector, I'm like, how are other people like? What's the long
Right.
term effect of people of that
Right.
random
Just
kid not even getting to walk by and be like, oh, that looks interesting. I like Ronald Acuna and he's on the front of
right.
this box of Topps Fire. Like you don't even have that because it's not there
No.
for the child to find because not everyone is, most people don't have a local card shop. Target or
No,
Walmart
I
is your
don't.
local card shop,
Right.
and not, you're unlikely to be introduced necessarily just online. I mean, I
Right.
guess with more celebrities getting involved, perhaps maybe that pushes,
Yeah, I
but
did.
I think that's less likely for like the 7 or 8 year old to just,
Oh,
decide they
for
want the
sure.
cards.
For sure. I actually saw the other day that Dale Murphy tweeted that he was joining his first group break. It's like that's interesting that Dale Murphy is. I don't know if he was paid to do so, but it was just interesting to see his tweet that he was talking about doing a group break.
The only reason I don't find that completely shocking is because he was signing at the Philly show
Okay.
last year or the year before. And for some reason, I don't know why, but Vintage Breaks, they had invited
Okay.
him to be like a guest breaker, and
Oh,
he was like really interested. He's like, "Oh, this is pretty neat." Like you could tell he didn't, he knew of cards and
right.
stuff like that. And I guess he had talked about some signings he did with Tops or whoever. But he was like, I think that's how he was introduced to it. That's just my guess because I
Okay.
didn't. I
That
saw
makes
someone.
sense.
It might have been you. Someone retweeted or mentioned
Right.
this on Twitter,
I think I did. Yeah.
but when I saw it, I was like, oh, I just instantly thought back to that him breaking stuff on
Okay.
Vintage Breaks.
I mean, it's definitely getting more mainstream where because we both know some doomsayers like, oh, the Chicken Littles, the sky is falling, it's all going to crash down and burn. Everything is cyclical, and not everything. And another thing is like another, not it's not a straight up, it's not a 45-degree angle straight up prices. Like, it starts here, and then at this point, it's just a straight line. There's peaks and valleys. Like there were a few people like true fact right now. Some LeBron cards have gone down the last couple of weeks, and you got a lot of people. Oh, I can't believe the LeBron cards went down. Don't panic. It's all right. It's part of how the hobby works. They're not playing right now. Baseball had the playoffs going on. Football is back. People get distracted. It'll come back. You don't have to worry. With a player like LeBron, you don't have to worry. And that's the sign of a lot of new people that are in the hobby. They get worried.
Well, and typically, usually, in the typical years, not necessarily last year, I didn't see this happen. And
Right.
this is more from a baseball perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
the best time to buy baseball singles was around, mid November till at least January because
Right.
basketball and football had the
The
attention,
attention.
and people were
Mm-hmm.
spending money on Christmas gifts, and people were spending
Yep.
money on traveling for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and people were out of sorts because of all the holidays. So
Right.
it wasn't that people lost
Exactly.
interest in baseball, they were distracted by other things. Now last year
Right.
the prices, I mean, I'm sure there was some stuff that dropped a little bit, but from following it, I didn't see much of a decrease.
No, I agree with you.
And I mean, I think this year you'll see a little bit maybe, but and that's
Maybe,
just maybe
but
across the board, but it won't be anything probably even noticeable because
Right,
the
and then
hobby's
spring
so
training,
popular right now and things just kind of keep
then
moving
spring
on. But
fever will be huge.
I do see that a lot. And like, listen, I mean, that's one of the things why if you collect some of the stuff Eric does, that you'll have less anxiety, maybe.
Right.
Obviously, you do collect, rookies
Wow.
and such.
Right.
But one of the things that can bring ease is if you're not, highly invested in all the rookies who's the most popular Tampa Bay Ray? He's a guy who didn't participate in the World Series, Wander Franco, a guy who has never played in the
Right.
majors. By far the most hobby love. But if you're kind of collecting and purchasing and putting a lot of money into prospects and rookies who are maybe a little older and not all that proven, that's where you have more of that, things are going up and down. This guy, hit 160. This guy, broke his arm and he's out all year.
Right.
If you focus more on the stars, the big time stars and the Hall of Fame guys or the potential,
Right.
maybe considered greatest of all times, because as I mentioned, everyone wants everyone to be the greatest of all time nowadays. But obviously, you show off some of the guys who are obviously that level player. And I think that's something that sometimes people forget. They think everyone's going to be an all time great. And it's like, not everyone can be an all time great. It's hard enough just to be a star player in the league, let alone a Hall of Famer, let alone kind of that elevated Hall of Famer, which
Right.
obviously you know what I'm talking about. Like a Hall of Famer is a Hall of Famer, but there's some Hall of Famers that are certainly on another level than other Hall of
That's
Famers,
correct.
if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, totally.
But if you have that, what's going to happen? Like LeBron
Yeah, you don't have
James,
to
Tom
worry.
Brady, they've won their championships.
Right.
They can build on their legacy a little bit. It would take something ridiculous for anything to be tarnished. And I don't
Yeah, for a
foresee those things
crash would
happening.
be there'd be some catastrophe going on for those guys to crash.
Well, believe it or not, Eric, we've talked for over an hour.
Wow, really? Ah,
Hour and 12
never seems
minutes
like
just goes
never
by like
seems like
that.
it. It
So,
really does.
so obviously, if you have any other thoughts on the hobby, super happy to talk about it. But if not, we'll wrap things up fairly soon. So, any final thoughts, Eric?
You have to enjoy yourself. I mean, it's easy to say that, and it's easy to get overwhelmed with everything. Here we are. It's the end of October, 2020. It's a year unlike. I'm 49 years old. I've never seen anything like this. That's not unique to me. That's not that. There are guys older than me that have never seen anything like this. You have to take things one day at a time. You really have to enjoy yourself. I mean, if you're collecting, if you're investing, like you mentioned before, that's something different. But I mean, if you're collecting or doing a combination of both, and you're stressed out, you have to move on maybe to collect something else. Maybe try something new. Maybe go to a different sport. Maybe ask Mike's advice. Ask my advice. Always reach out to me. I'm always glad to help in any way I can. You have to, for a while I was really into the comics. Probably about 8 years ago, I was really reading comics, and I got to a point where I was reading the floppies, which are the once a month comics, and I was reading about 25 or 30 titles. And one day I said to myself, it's starting to feel like a job to keep up with all of these titles. And I'm not reading comics because it's my job. It should not be stressful. So I just stopped. I brought it down to three titles, and I just found that much more enjoyable. So if you're collecting baseball and you're frustrated with prices, and like we said, the update is almost twice SRP, and that pisses you off. Go to some singles. Maybe go backwards. Try to come up with something a little off the cuff, and don't worry about it. Like, you you don't have to. You don't always have to follow the crowd, because eventually you can go your own way, and eventually either you'll be all by yourself or everyone else will actually catch up to you. as far as because and again it comes back to like the graded rookies. I've been a large fan of graded rookies, base cards. I've been a very large fan for 15 plus years now. And when I tell people the prices I've paid for some of my stuff, they're like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that." Well, at the time, that was the going price. It wasn't like some extraordinary steal bargain of a deal. It was the going price at the time. So you're collecting. You have your copy. You move your focus onto the next thing you want to be collecting. So you have to enjoy yourself. You have to have a good time. And, the hobby is going to be fine. The hobby's always going to be there. It's going to be in different forms, different, air quotes, assigned values over the years, but it's still going to be there. And if you feel personally, anyone listening, that, you need to take some time off, that's fine. Take some time off, come back. We'll, as a community, will always still be here.
Yeah, you just got to find out and do what you want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's good to be influenced by other members of the community to get ideas, to think of different ways you can add to your collection. But you also have to make sure you're not just trying to collect what other people collect.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta go with what you like. Just because basketball's hot, if you're not into basketball, then stay away from basketball. Let other people enjoy it. Same thing with baseball or football. I'm a big proponent of collecting like your favorite players, your favorite teams, stuff like that. Like it doesn't have to be high value stuff. Sometimes you'll get a ton of joy out of, just collecting guys you like. Just because other people don't consider them worthy to collect doesn't mean you can't collect them. It's certainly fun to follow the guys that are going right now and some of the young rookies, but if price becomes prohibitive and if you're getting anxiety over it, then maybe it's time to step away from that and just kind of focus on some stuff that's a little more stable, even guys you grew up watching and such. So many ways to collect. It just takes time to find your way to collect things, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can collect some sets. You don't maybe have to collect every set, or same thing with breaking stuff, especially in today's times. You kind of have to learn to, if you want to break, you either have to put the effort in to find retail, which is tough, or you got to just pick a few, hobby products that you really like and maybe can't do a little bit of everything like maybe you did in the past. So many ways to collect, and it should be fun. And obviously you can get overburdened sometimes, but you just got to take that step back and make sure you're enjoying the hobby. Eric, once again, appreciate you joining me on this episode of Hobby Talk. Always a great time talking to you. A lot of knowledge for the people out there listening and a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. I had a great time. I appreciate it. And I always enjoy talking shop.
All right, everyone. If you listen to this on Google or SoundCloud or wherever, make sure you check out some of the YouTube channels. Huge community of collectors on YouTube. You can check out Eric's channel, which somehow I don't think we mentioned. It's ThoseBackPages. Great channel, ton of knowledge, ton of experience collecting, so check it out. I will post a link to his channel on the YouTube version of this show. My channel is MikeO, so you can probably Google them out and you'll, I'm sure, find them. So appreciate you listening on there. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you toss some comments in the comment section down below, and talk to you next time. Have a great one.